Where am I? I can't see me. Well, that's okay. I don't need to. I'm in the dark, like I usually am.
Hi, Pat. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks, Steve. It's finally sinking in. Took a while.
Good luck. I hope you adapt well.
Thank you.
I agree. I'm really excited for you, Pat. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine, I think.
When's the due date?
Well, I think next Friday I am totally out of the picture. Cut the ties. I'm training my replacement, so I'm thinking next Friday he's going to be on his own.
Oh boy.
Do we know who that is?
Yes. Pete Benolio, families from Olympic Valley.
Huh. Okay.
He's been working in Sacramento with a city council member there and been involved in some campaigns. So he's got some good political and advocacy experience.
Oh, good. Good. Well, I'll say it later, but right now I wish you luck.
Thank you very much.
And it was a pleasure working with you over all these years.
Yeah, I can't believe how many
What that?
Thank
Been a
you.
long time, huh? Yeah.
Good luck, Pat.
Thank you.
Wow. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening there. Where are you?
I know. Where are you, Joe? I can't see you.
You are. You can't see me.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
I'm hiding over here.
I'm the last one in. I apologize.
Yeah, that's nothing.
But I'm here now, so I'm going to go ahead and call to order this regular board meeting of the TDPUD Board of Directors at 6 p.m. on 6:01 p.m. on Wednesday, February 3rd. There, gavelled it in. Shauna, could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Bender?
Here.
Director Aguirre?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Vice President Laliotis?
Here.
President Finn?
Here.
Thank you.
We are going to defer the pledge tonight, and I'm going to ask Interim General Manager Wright if we have any changes to the agenda this evening.
President Finn, we have no changes to the agenda this evening.
Thank you very much. And now it is a moment for public comment. This time is set aside for the public to address the board on any matter not on the agenda. Testimony related to any agendized matter should be addressed to the time that that item is considered. So this has been sort of an evolving process with COVID and our Zooming. And I was, last week I didn't read out things, but I was misled about, well, I wasn't misled, I was mistaken myself about processes. But now, going forward tonight, we have the ability to take public comment on real time via Zoom. And we are also recording this and backup recording this so that the public can make sure that they see the entire meeting. And that will be our process moving forward. And the public is very welcome to attend our meetings and comment now themselves with their own voices during public comment. And I will make sure that comments from the past before we got this system are available for the public to view on our website in a public comment folder. So, is there any public comment this evening? I don't.
No, Madam Mayor, I'm not seeing any.
Thank you. Which brings us to our director updates. Do we have any director updates? We can start with Director Bender, because you're right in front of me.
I
You're
can
muted.
find my mouse and there we are. have no updates other than I'll be updating everybody about the ad hoc committee a little later this evening. So happy February, everyone. And Pat, great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Director Bender. Director Harris, do you have a public or a director's comment for us this evening?
I do. First off, I want to thank you, Krista, very much for making the extra effort to, help with the transparency and the public comment. I really appreciate that opportunity for the community to be able to comment and be heard. And 'tis the season for retirements, because I know that recently the PUD had a longtime employee retire, and that was Ian Fitzgerald. And I just wanted to kind of give him a shout out. I don't know if we're going to be doing a recognition for him or not, but I just wanted to say thank you to Ian for his 20 years of service as the CIO, which is the Chief Information Officer. I definitely appreciated your commitment to excellence and your time that you've served at the PUD. So wanted to just say that. And then I also attended ethics training with Mr. Steve Gross and with Andy Morris from the town. And I thought it was very informative, and it was fun to listen to the stories and get input from the various elected local officials there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Harris. Director Laliotis.
Nothing much other than also shout out to Steve and Andy Morris for their time and doing the ethics training. That's the second or third or fourth time I've done that training with you guys. Well, it's not quite the same being in the chambers with all the other people. It was still very entertaining and rewarding. So thank you. So thank you very much. Look forward to the rest of tonight.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Director Aguera, do you have an update for us this evening?
Yeah, I wish I'd have known you were having an ESTA training. I would have been there, Steve. I think I've had it 3 or 4 times too, but I know we have to qualify with it anyway. I think, Kim, you helped me 1 year with it on your computer. But, I'll still get with you on that anyway. But anyway, on Ian, I want to thank him also for his great service to us. He was a very valuable employee to us and did a lot of good development for us. And when he did the maps and everything else through the course of the years, I think he was a great guy. So I think that's all I have today.
Thank you very much, Director Aguera. And I also have a quick update. Yes, I obtained ethics training. I feel more ethical, very relieved. I also attended the CMUA Capital Days. That's our California Municipal Utilities Association series of meetings last week. I want to thank Stephen Poncelet for helping to shepherd me through those events. And that is where munis and PUDs go and listen to what is going on in the legislature this year in Sacramento. And it's always extremely interesting and informative. And the takeaway for me this year, of course, it always is, we're all facing exactly the same problems. We're all grappling with exactly the same set of challenges. Affordability of electricity and water, our decarbonization process, economic recovery. COVID, of course, is an overarching theme that we're all trying to still figure out how our economies are going to recover, including, utilities who have sort of been left out of a lot of the PP loan situations. I went to private and then state entities. So we haven't seen a lot of that, but I think we will. That's the good news. There was a lot of good news in this conference. There's a lot of thoughtful, creative people of goodwill working towards the same end. So I took a lot of heart from that. Things are changing. Obviously, our district, our town, our county, and the state, and the feds are all now kind of coming into a little bit more alignment than they have been for the past couple of years. And sort of an interesting, real specific thing about that was a year ago, I got a chance to meet with and speak with Assemblywoman and Senator Dolly, and I brought up biomass, and they were both like, that hasn't totally died several times, and we don't think we can really move it forward, even though they're fans. But this year, it was a kind of a different, everybody's interested in biomass. They're like, oh, Loyalton's going to come back online in April. So things just keep changing. We just have to keep our eyes open and our minds open to possibilities that may come our way. And everybody is also having challenges with public inclusion, wildfire management, but there's a lot of great ideas. I look forward to meeting with perhaps Stephen and Brian and talking about things that other municipalities and publicly owned utility districts are doing that have been working really well that we can just steal and do ourselves. So that's my update. I've had a really PUD intense 2 weeks. I feel like I've been in meetings every day. So, but very exciting and, like I said, sort of enlivening. So I really do love attending those events. So that is my update. I probably took a little more time than we'd like. So I'm going to roll right into interim general manager Wright if he has a general manager update for us.
Yes, thank you, President Finn. A few updates of interest. I wanted to take the opportunity to direct our customers, our community to our website for the payment assistance programs. We're still kind of seeing uptick in numbers of folks who are either delinquent or non-payment of their bill. And we have the funding there through the Sierra Community House that is in large part, hasn't been completely utilized. Percentage-wise, about 25% of the funds have been accessed and applied to payment relief, but those funds are still there. So those out in the community, reach out to the community house, and qualifying ratepayers can access some of those funds to get relief through this continuing COVID crisis. Again, TDPUD.org. There's some great information there, and the Sierra Community House to apply and register. With that, I'd also kind of want to piggyback on what President Finn said at the onset of the meeting here this afternoon. On January 20th, we did have a workshop in which a pretty significant portion of the workshop was cut off of streaming technology. That was a technological glitch in our connection with the local television and Zoom. And to President Finn's point, staff and the board here are working diligently to make sure that in the future meetings, that technology is more stable and there's increased access for the public, both for viewership, participation, and public comment. So that's the commitment here with the PUD to improve those opportunities moving forward. Case in point, this evening, participants can utilize Zoom or the email public comment kind of portal there. With that being said, we have a couple of workshops this evening, and this is going to be the workshop season, so to speak. A lot of plans coming out. So with the regulation that you all experienced with Capitol Day, a lot of plans, urban water management plans, capital improvement plans, strategic plans. So with that, I wanted to also just send a message out to the public in any of these workshops where there may have been a topic that wasn't completely covered, or you want some additional information, please feel free to reach out to staff here through our website and email. We want to have engagement, and these plans can be quite detailed, a lot of information, and sometimes it just needs to be processed and then additional questions. Piggybacking on the community outreach and the focus groups we had, that was a lot of what we heard from the community is more workshops and engagement. And so these plans and workshops are going to have a lot of information. So feel free to call us, email us, and we'll get that communication, going back and forth there. I also want to report a local success. We had a collaborative project with the town of Truckee and the fire department for a shared fuel station. This is very critical for all of our agencies' reliability and sustainability here in the basin. We've all been through the winters, and some of the new residents here, you're going through your first winter maybe as a resident of Truckee. But in those harsh times, fuel reliability and access is critical to all of our operations. And I want to commend Bill Saline, Chief of the Fire Protection District, Dan Wilkins, and Jen Calloway over at the town, and our staff here at the district for that collaborative work. Congratulations. And it's being utilized, so that's good news. And that's all I have, President Finn.
Thank you very much. Good news, good news. Which brings us to we've got a great meeting tonight. There's all sorts of good things. Our special business this evening, consideration of a proclamation for Pat Davison. Do I take public comment on this? Is there any public comment on our special business number 8 this evening?
No, Madam President, there is not.
Thank you. In which case, I'm going to hand the baton to you, Shauna, for your presentation.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. Can everybody see that? Everybody can see my screen now? Thank you. So it is a great honor to be able to present to the board this proclamation for their consideration for Pat Davison's retirement. I had the opportunity to meet and work with Pat upon her accepting her position with CAT in 2005. As an employee of the town of Truckee, I watched Pat firsthand be involved with every aspect of city government. Watching Pat interact with the town leaders, it was apparent that Pat embodied the Truckee way. Facing challenges with interest-based discussions, experience, and innovation, Pat furthered CAT's mission in a collaborative, professional manner. Over the last 15 plus years, Pat has worked with every special district, essentially setting a standard for local government affairs. Not to mention, Pat formed the first political action committee for CAT. This PAC influences government agencies and legislation in meeting the community's demands and desires. Internally, staff describes Pat as dedicated, resourceful, fierce, and a partner. My apologies. And it's staff's recommendation to approve the proclamation for Pat Davison, wishing her the best in retirement.
Sorry, I was muted. Wonderful. Do we have any directors who would like to add a comment at this point in time? You can raise your hand, I think. I don't need to call you out. Kim. Okay, Kim won.
I just, Pat, these are always part of my favorite part of meetings is when we recognize excellence in the community. And you have been an inspiration to people, to women. You've done great work with the Contractors Association. And I just want to say personally, thank you very much for your service, your commitment, and I wish you luck and have a great time in retirement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Director Laliotis, I saw that you were.
Yeah, no. So I've probably worked with Pat for the better part of 15, maybe 20 years between Tahoe City and Truckee. And a lot of those words are very valuable and very appropriately descriptive of Pat's approach to dealing with representing her group and trying to find solutions to concerns and issues so that her customers, her clients, their customers, their clients, and us as government and regulatory agencies can find common ground. And that's a very rare, it's a very rare trait. So I really appreciated that about you, Pat. You know, you did your job extremely well with extreme tact, and with an eye on solutions, not problems. So I really appreciate all of your time and effort over the past many years, and I wish you luck in your next chapter in life.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Would anybody else like to, there we go. I see Director Bender unmuted.
Pat, I'd like to add more adjectives: empathetic, caring, fair, passionate, hardworking. So just, always a pleasure working with you. I ditto the other comments from the other directors, the comments from the other directors. So I just always remember, 12 and a half years ago, running for the PUD for the first time, and just the attention to detail, making sure that everybody had a fair shot and getting their stuff out, getting their words out, and talking to people, and just that empathy. So and caring, and the hard work. So thank you very much for rocking it with Kat for so many years. It's we're gonna miss you very much, and good luck, and hope to see you around. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bender. Council Gross, you raised your hand.
I did. Thank you. I don't usually chime in, but for Pat, we'll make an exception. I've had the opportunity, pleasure to work with Pat over many, many, many years. I won't say how long time. And her challenges were many, bringing a diverse group of contractors and associate type members with divergent interests, and certainly different preferences on how they might present their issues for resolution. And Pat, you've always managed to bring everybody together, as everyone before me has said, in a very collaborative, tactful way. And I think you've really shown that you can get more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. And it doesn't mean you have to be soft. It just means that you know how to approach people, communicate your issues, and have constructive dialogue that I think is really beneficial. And I hope as you train your replacement, you instill some of those traits and skills and means of communication, because I think they've been very effective. And I wish you the very best and happiness in your retirement. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk now.
I see you.
Well, for a while there, I thought Pat was Cat. I'm telling you, she'd come to our meetings and she wanted transparency, and she got transparency, and she came after us, and she'd she'd come to every one of our meetings. And for a while, I thought, well, gee, she didn't really have to come to these meetings, but she did, because she had an interest in what we were doing for the community and wanted to know that we were progressing along good. And when she gave us some kind of a project to do for Cat or for the community, she'd follow up on it. She wouldn't let us slow down or back up on it. And she'd say, "Hey, are you guys still on that?" And we said, "Yeah, we are." So she was very conscientious at her job. And like I said, I thought Pat was Cat. So congratulations, Pat, for retiring, and I hope you like retirement and do the good things that you wanted to do. So see you then, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Aguera. And I'm really going to echo all of those things. I haven't had as much opportunity to actually work with Pat, but I have certainly overlapped with her at many meetings, town meetings, GPAC meetings. And I have so admired the way that you comport yourself, the way that you bring together different viewpoints, as Council Gross pointed out, and really moved this community forward. I mean, I took notes. I was like, okay, that's a really great way to do certain things. And you taught me a lot, even though you probably didn't realize it at the time. But I so appreciate your service. You really created a template for me to help me grow and learn also as a person. So I really appreciate that. Congratulations. And I can't imagine who's going to fill your shoes. So thank you.
Thank you.
And do we have, I think we need a motion at this point. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Absolutely. I'll make the motion to recognize Pat Davidson for her many years of service of the Truckee community and the Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe with this proclamation. And I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation. Is that okay? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry?
I'll second that for sure.
Thanks, Joe. Whereas Pat Davidson joined the Contractors Association of Truckee Tahoe in 2005 as the executive director, moving in 2018 to government affairs manager while administering CAT's Political Action Committee. And whereas Pat Davidson worked tirelessly in her endeavors to create a collaborative environment with local agencies and CAT. And whereas Pat Davidson was instrumental in working with the district to implement policies and procedures to further relationships and communications with the district and CAT members. Whereas Pat Davidson has made invaluable contributions to the Truckee community with productive and innovative participation to further community-based discussions. Whereas Pat Davidson work ethic and integrity stand as a standard for community relationships. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Directors of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District as follows. The Truckee-Donner Public Utility District wishes Pat Davidson and the best in retirement. Furthermore, may her legacy be the standard for governmental affairs and collaborative relationships. Yay!
Yay!
Before we vote, I don't know if we can give Pat a chance to make any comments so we can embarrass her more.
Good idea.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, just thank you so much for the kind words. I was shocked when Shauna asked me if I'd be available February 3rd, and it's like, what's going on? So I figured there was something in the works here. I'm just so honored and humbled by all of this, and very lucky to have worked with all of you. I have been there in your boardrooms, as Joe said, when the room's packed with people, and also where I'm the only one there with all of you as the board and staff, but I always knew that staff was a partner, and you as the board were partners going forward with the Contractors Association. And that's how things work in this community. We all see each other at the grocery store, the car wash, and building partnerships is the way to move forward. I firmly believe that, and I'm happy to tell you that my replacement also has that same mindset. His name is Pete Fenolio, and you will meet him. I know he will make the rounds talking to the different jurisdictions. So I want to thank you all for your openness and accessibility, for the professionalism and courtesy of staff. I think there's great things moving forward for the Truckee-Donner PUD, and it is now sinking into me that yes, I'm also moving, but in a different direction. So thank you again for this. I am so honored by this proclamation, and appreciate everything you've said. Thank you again.
Pat, thank you so much for all the years.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, we had a motion, we had a second. I think we could use a roll call vote now.
Thank you. Director Aguirre.
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, moving on to our second item of special business, the General Manager's Succession Transition Ad Hoc Committee update. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Director Bender. And we may have some, I think staff might have I forgot.
No, I've got it.
You've got it. Okay, Director Bender has it all.
All right. Thank you, President Finn. I am going to share my screen now. Can everyone see the two documents on the screen? Nice. Look at that. I did it. I think let's go over the calendar here. We've talked about this a few times. We've fine-tuned it a little bit, and this is where we're at. The February 3rd board meeting tonight. What we're looking to get a thumbs up on is the document, the other document, the advertisement for the general manager look. And we'll talk about that once we get through the calendar here. So if everybody gives it a thumbs up tonight, it's Drew's going to publish it tomorrow, and that'll open up the the recruitment for the general manager position. And so then we have a strategic planning workshop, some regular meetings in there, a regular meeting in there, and then we have a March 15th final deadline for filing resumes and letters of interest, followed up by some March 22nd through the 26th. Peckham and McKinney will look preliminary screen the candidates, and then we have then March 31st, as well as the strategic planning workshop, we've got the recommendations to the board. And so it most likely will probably be around 10, like last time, but somewhere in there. And I just want to remind the board that, at any time, just feel free to speak up during the process if there's questions about the candidates, and just worst case scenario, if you don't like those 10, we can always ask to look at more. So we're looking at a process here to keep everyone involved and informed. And then once we get that recommendation from Peckham and McKinney, we'll do the final candidate interviews. April 19th through the 20th is our tentative date that's the Monday and Tuesday after spring break. And then we'll have shortly thereafter the recommendation of new hires. So, and then the schedule thereafter is all based on, finalizing the contract and getting the final start date solidified and negotiating with the new GM. So there's the proposed GM recruitment milestones and schedule. And if you can bring your attention to that, I'm going to move my water bottle here so I can look at it. The highlighted areas, I'm just getting to the beginning, are where we added. So Director Harris had a good idea of adding the mission statement. So we added that, and we had some minor tweaks to it a few months ago. So we added the mission statement to this. We felt like we agreed that is a good idea to include that. We did add a little update on this page regarding what we're working on now, specifically the strategic plan. We've put safety to the beginning. Safety's number one there. Updated the budget for 2021 coming up. And we added a range for the compensation. just to give a better idea, Drew felt a range was a really good idea, and the ad hoc committee agreed with that. And so this is the range we are proposing, which provides a pretty good idea to potential candidates, and also provides we looked at the salary schedule a little bit to make sure we had, I can't remember the term for that, but other than I can only think of the gap between the general manager and the employees right under the GM. So at this point, and I'm going to just open it up for any comments or questions regarding the proposed schedule or the advertisement. Director Harris, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I do. Thank you guys so much, because I know it takes a village to go through this process. And I've said it before in previous meetings, where we may find it beneficial to involve more community members in the process of selection, whether as part of the interview process, maybe have a panel where each board member appoint a community member to be on kind of the community interview panel, as well as the board interview panel, or senior management, and maybe the final couple candidates come to the board. I'm just kind of curious if any of that had come up with discussion with your ad hoc committee.
We absolutely didn't talk about that, and just the overall feeling regarding, I think just bringing in a community for actually one of the most important things the board of directors can do. This is our one employee, and what our elected officials or our constituents have put us on the board for. We asked Drew about that. He has never seen that happen, bringing in. So I'm at this point, having a community members be a part of the interview process. The ad hoc committee agreed that we would not we don't want to recommend or bring that into the process.
Okay, fair enough. And was there any discussion of kind of lessons learned from the first go around of hiring when you hired the previous general manager? What kind of discussions happened there?
Absolutely. So we have talked about that. We are going to take a quick look at our hard skill sets, cultural skill sets. The ad hoc committee, there was a slurry of emails to set up a meeting to kick that off and look at that. And that's our next step within the ad hoc committee, to look at that and then bring that back to the board once we've done a preliminary pass through on that, including all lessons learned. Yes, absolutely. And we will be bringing that. Oh, Krista, say that again.
That does include a gap analysis. Like, we will be looking at very specifically what we think, what the gaps were in our first time around. So yes, and this is going to include, again, the whole ad hoc. It's not just Jeff and I, also staff on the ad hoc committee. So, and we will come back to the board with those. And if you guys have additional thoughts, of course, we will be listening to that, obviously. So I will pipe down now.
Correct. Kim, anything else on that, or?
No, the town just, went through this process of hiring a new police chief and a new town manager. And it's always refreshing to just have the community participate in it, because, we are a community owned utility company. So just trying to ensure that we listen to the community.
Okay, now that I do think about it, we did have multiple community input sessions, but prior to COVID kicking off, defining the hard skill sets and the cultural skill sets. So yeah, sorry that I forgot about that earlier.
But yeah, we did take a lot of community input, and I believe that information is absolutely still pertinent. I don't think anything, there haven't been any dramatic changes in this community about what our values are.
Yeah, no, I agree. We front-ended our community input effort early on. So, that was our strategy was a little bit different in that respect, where we brought the community in as part of the initial process, not necessarily right at the interview stage. I will add a comment that I don't think it's that rare that there are community members who sit on hiring panels for community leaders and members like a GM. So I'll disagree with Drew that he may have never seen that, but I certainly have. So it is not unheard of or rare. But I will say that our intent was to front end the community's input early on through our workshops. And I remember sitting in that room with, gosh, how many people? Probably 30, 40, 50 community members talking about these values. And one other comment I want to make, and might be a little bit too early, but I want the ad hoc community to kind of hear it now, is I think it'd be beneficial for us as community leaders and members to make sure that we thoroughly vet all qualified local candidates through this process. Because there are many local and I'll qualify my statement by saying qualified, meaning with significant experience that we're looking for, that are within this community, that we make an effort to make sure we review their resumes and their potential for being part of the interview process as a board. So.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Sorry, Jeff. Habits are dying hard here. I'm like,
I know I'm trying to find the Alt-A key and it disappeared with the share screen, so I wasn't able to unmute there for a second. So, Krista, since you were talking, you've unmuted. Do you have any additional thoughts?
I do actually, and this is on the timeline. So on March 31st, we have the strategic planning workshop and the GM candidate recommendations to the board. And then it jumps right to the final candidate interviews. Now, somewhere in there, we have to whittle down the 10 to like the 3 final candidates. Are we going to squeak another meeting in there?
Yeah, that's a good point. We need to, there's a take the 10 and combine and review and discuss and then have our final candidates.
Yeah, because we had to, I remember we took all those home, we all read them, we all ranked them, individually, and then we came back together and we kind of hashed it out.
Right.
Of, the winners there, and that became our final 3. So we're missing, I don't know how I didn't see this before. I don't know. I've seen this thing many times now, but tonight I just finally made that. So we're going to have to squeeze a meeting in.
Yeah, so I think when we come back, we'll come back with a date.
Okay.
To do that, yeah.
President Krista, I have a question for Jeff.
Yes.
Back to February 4th. We went out for public advertisement of the GM. Now, how did we do that? What did you get a hold of a bunch of publications, or how did you get this information out to everybody?
Okay, so we have a formal document that I'm sharing my screen with everyone, and it's the general manager advertisement there by Peckham and McKinney. So if no one else has any comments on this document, then we are going to give Drew the thumbs up to advertise for the position. And that's what Drew's going to kick off for us tomorrow.
He's the one that's going to kick it off.
Correct. Publicly advertising it. Yes.
Okay, so he'll get in contact with the journals and newspapers and whatever he has to then. I know we have our form and what we're looking for, but then how does it get to the candidate?
Right. They're going to advertise. And I believe Tony mentioned earlier, we already have a few people interested and locally. So there's a lot of people interested, and so it's already in the works through word of mouth, and the official publication on LinkedIn, etc. All that will happen tomorrow if everyone gives it a thumbs up.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Joe.
And Jeff, I'm sorry, I also forgot to mention, not only the community, are the employees involved at all as part of this hiring process? Like the union or the management team?
We have, as part of the ad hoc committee, that's Mike Salmon, Krista, and I, and Joe Horvath. And so they're going to be reaching out to the employees during this process for our gap analysis and lesson learned, etc. And I think this correct me if I'm wrong, other board members, but I believe we did the exact same process we did for the public as for the employees, all the employees of the district.
And we also had members of the ad hoc committee, and the last time around sat in on the interviews and observed and took notes, and we asked for their feedback. But that was and I expect that same process to occur again.
Who was on the ad hoc committee last time again?
Krista and Tony.
Okay, and from the senior management team?
It was Joe Horvath and Brian Wright.
Okay, and so we've added Mike to it. Okay.
And Jeff, yeah, I believe you're right. We went through I think Pam through the ELT conducted those workshops with staff, if I remember correctly.
The bells are going off in my head. 1,000 points of light coming together. So yes, I believe we did that. Yeah. Any other final remaining thoughts on the outlook, the advertisement? Steve or Brian? Say that again, Krista. Sorry, I spoke over you.
I apologize for same thing, speaking over you. And really what's in front of us tonight is just approving the changes to the recruitment brochure that we're looking at on screen. Like that's our big, the other things, we will be coming back and reporting to the board. Again, we haven't even had our first real official ad hoc meeting to really lay out the very specific steps and changes and gap analysis for the board, so you guys can give us your feedback on that. So that is, going to happen. But this tonight is really, we want to make sure we get those recruitment materials out there. While they're out there in the world, we will be giving you more information about how the recruitment is going to unfold. Well, if we don't have any more feedback on the brochure.
I will admit it. I didn't get a chance to really look at it as closely. I didn't realize that you guys were going to be asking for the approval of this tonight. with any changes. So I will say that I did share my my comments with Drew, and the mission statement. Jeff mentioned that got added. On my screen, it's super small, so I can't really see it very well.
So just an FYI, I believe we did distribute this on the last meeting, and then Shauna was able to email it out. A few hours prior to the board meeting. But it is hot off the press, so we're trying to crank it out, get it out to everyone. And the highlights were the only changes from the last advertisement. Okay. All right, so and I do want to make a correction. Once we get this out, we have the more solidification there on the finalist interviews. So we have 18 days to review those final candidates and communicate out and schedule that for the 19th. Okay, I think I yield my time on presenting for the ad hoc. President Finn.
Thank you, Director Bender.
Oh, I'm still sharing my screen. Sorry. All right, stand by while I find my mouse and there we go. Stop share.
So you guys should have that in your email. The only substantive changes that we made to that document, because we thought the whole stood up very well that we crafted, was including the mission statement at Director Harris's suggestion, solidifying a salary range, and removing the items that referred to Michael Hawley as being the current GM. And we included the fact that we are working currently on a strategic plan that includes expanding that includes exploring things like undergrounding and broadband. And that's really those are the only changes to that document. Otherwise, it is exactly the same as the last document that we created for that. So those are the three things that, could be, if you have anything to say about those changes, now is the time to say it. I think that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I shared my comments with Drew, so I trust that he did his job in doing it, So
Yeah.
the majority, yeah.
Yes.
But thank you very much for kind of summing it up for me, and letting me know.
No worries. Okay, very good. So now I think I am looking for a motion to approve. Where am I? That document. Do we have?
No, we don't need a motion for this, so we're all good.
Okay.
Drew's gonna publish it unless, Steve, you have any direction on how we formally need to proceed.
Well, I think I think a motion would be appropriate to approve the calendar and the advertisement as has been presented and discussed this evening.
I'm not sure we should approve the calendar because there is going to have to be a meeting inserted in there. So to whittle down the 10 candidates that were presented to our 3 finalists.
Understood. There are some dates though listed on the brochure itself.
Right. And so yes, those we'll count as approving that. You're right, because we're approving the brochure. So okay.
So if you just want to approve the brochure and with those dates, then that's fine. I think that would work fine then to meet your goals.
So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the brochure as it has been presented this evening.
I'll move that with the modifications on it.
Thank you, Director Aguirre. Do we have a second? Anybody? Anybody?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Shauna, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar this evening. Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Do we have any director's comments on the consent calendar?
I would like agenda item number 14 to be pulled, please.
Okay, so when we pull it,
It moves into action, I think.
does it do that like right now? So should we pull that and can we approve the rest of the consent calendar?
Yes.
Okay, so we will pull item number 14 and
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar up to item 13, excluding 14.
thank you.
I'll second that.
And can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So that brings us to item number 14. Consideration for approval of the 2021 wage range schedule for the unrepresented employees. And I believe that Mr. Salmon might have a presentation for us.
President Finn, this is for the consent calendar. We don't have presentation, so we do not have a presentation for this item, but we are happy to answer any question that the board of directors might have. And I do have with us this evening Mike Salmon, our CFO, or myself can answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you. And I will open it up for director discussion.
It's been, I guess it must have been a while. I didn't realize that when you pull an item from consent that there's no presentation with it. And can somebody kind of go over the agenda item a little bit?
Yeah, it's been district practice for some time now that consent items don't include a presentation, just in the interest of conserving staff time. But we are happy to answer any items on the staff report by the public or the directors.
Getting there.
Okay, I know that when we pulled it at one of my first meetings that I went to, when Neil Kaufman did his, he had a presentation. So I was looking for a presentation, but I will go ahead and ask the questions from the background that I have seen. I actually did a bit of research on these wage scales. I believe in 2017, there was a salary survey done with approval of the changes in the salaries in 2018 on the 2018 salaries. Was that correct?
There was the district did perform a salary survey in 2017, but that's not included on this item number 14 this evening.
No, it's not. What I'm kind of getting at is how do we get to the salaries that we have here? So I was looking at the presentation of when the last year's salary schedules were adopted, and there were some significant changes to wage scales for positions, and part of the questions I have, and I know that we set more policy, what is the district's practices or policies on when you bring it to the board for an adjustment to a wage scale?
District Council, do you have any comment on that?
Well, there's many different possible triggers that would result in the wage scales being brought to the board. Most recently, I believe last year, the district concluded negotiations with the union. The board approved an MOU with the union. As part of that process, then the district also negotiated changes to compensation and benefits with the unrepped employees. And through that process, there were several meetings and discussions with the board and general manager and staff with respect to changes in compensation to various positions. And so those were brought to the board last year. So that's a trigger after negotiations. And as a result of those negotiations, they included the MOU and then the agreement, the provisions that apply to the unrepresented employees provide for some adjustments to compensation in subsequent years, including this year. And so what you have before you this evening is the wage scales that were in effect negotiated last year, but when they're approved, when they go into effect, they're brought back to the board as they are tonight for approval. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, kinda. So if you have one position so when we did the salary study in 2017 and we brought the wage scale adjustments to the board, we kind of broke it down into kind of groups. There was like a group of positions that came up that as part of the salary survey, it was showing that that these were grossly underpaid. So we actually put a cap on the amount of increases that could be given, and we put a cap on, I want to say it was like 10%. So no salary ranges were adjusted per position that would have been more than 10%. So anything, when I saw last year's wage scales from the previous, so 2019 into 2020, because these wage scales are based on 2020. And there were three positions that I saw that had significant changes, well over 10%, that it didn't appear that it had been presented to the board. And maybe it was presented to the board through the budget process, through changes in personnel. I think that they created a new position, a HR and administrative manager type position, that I don't even think it's on this wage scale. But there's just, the wage scales have kind of morphed over the past 2 years. And my question is, at what point are the specific changes in wage scales brought to the board? So, and kind of what I hear from you is it depends.
No, that's not what I said. I said there are several different triggers that may result in the wage scales coming to the board. One of those triggers were the negotiations that occurred last year. And all of the positions that were adjusted were reviewed with the board during several meetings. And so I just want to correct that. You just stated right now, I believe, that they weren't reviewed by the board. They were reviewed by the board during several meetings. In fact, you and President Finn and I had this discussion yesterday, and we talked about this very issue, and we informed you that the board had in fact discussed these positions, all these changes, and the wage scales in significant detail. And I believe as a result of those discussions and the significant amount of information provided to the board, that it was the board's pleasure not to have a presentation when those were approved last March. It doesn't mean, though, that the board wasn't aware of them or never discussed them. And so, I certainly invite President Finn or other board members, if they'd like to confirm what I'm saying, that these items, these wage scales, these positions, were all discussed at length with the board.
That is, in fact, my recollection of last spring. It was really January, February, leading into March, where we were engaged in labor negotiations, which also, relates to our unrepresented employees. And we did have multiple discussions. We were noted some compaction was happening at that time. I recall discussing that at length, particularly with Director Laliotis, actually had a lot of insight, and that's not my specialty, but that is, I do recall all of those. That was the arc that we traveled at that time.
Okay. And I have a couple thoughts. One is, I know in here it mentions salaries surveys, and there's supposed to be one scheduled for 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah, part of the negotiated agreement between the unrepresented staff and the board of directors was to include a salary survey in the year preceding the next negotiation. So that would be 2021.
Okay. And then are there any salary surveys done for the union positions?
No, that's not included in the agreement. The union positions, the MOU is effective until 2025, I believe.
Okay. And then I know that there in the agenda packet, it talks about savings due to vacancies at the district. How many vacant positions do we currently have?
We don't have that number with us this evening. I wasn't prepared for that. But for example, I am currently the interim general manager. So the water utility director position is currently vacated. At the onset of the meeting, you referenced the departure of the previous IT director. And there's, I believe, a position that's pretty significant there that would be representative of those savings.
Okay. I think what I would like to see as a board member is any changes to a position's wage scale that's greater than 10%. Be brought to the board and presented to the board for approval, for that new wage scale. I don't know what other places, what kind of practices other places have.
Just for the record, all the wage scale changes were presented to the board in negotiation. So they've all been agreed upon by the board of directors and the negotiating party, which was the unrepresented employees. The item for you this evening is to administratively approve the wage scale that has been modified per the agreement. That's a 2% across the board general wage increase. All the other wage scales have been approved back in March of 2020.
Correct. And I actually went back and watched that meeting, and it did refer to 3 positions in the MOU that had adjustments to the salary ranges. But I believe that those ranges were adjusted in the unreps ranges. So it was confusing to me to see how the 2020 salary ranges were derived. So that's just kind of my comments.
Okay. Well, again, the item in front of us is to approve the 2021 wage range schedule and adjustment for the unrepresented employees as presented. Do we have a motion?
Also moved.
Do
I'll
I have
second.
a second? Thank you. Shauna, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Yes.
Director Bender.
I'm going to abstain from voting on this one.
Vice President
Yes.
Laliotis, President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Kim, you can always vote no. It's okay. You can.
Well, I mean, the union negotiations, I know that those went through, and those are pretty thorough. The unreps negotiations, I understand they went through that, but it just wasn't very clear with those 3 positions. So I figured I'd abstain.
Can I ask if you're doubting as to whether or not the board actually did approve those?
No, I saw that they did approve it.
Okay.
But the wage scales weren't attached to the agenda item last year. So that was just interesting. So.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, the administrative error was the omission of the UNREP and the MOU wage scale. That was corrected in the subsequent board meetings, I believe.
I think we are moving forward to action item 15, which is I've been looking forward to very much. This is consideration of Resolution 2021-03, authorizing the contract for electric service-based resource with Western Area Power Administration. So I look forward to Joe presenting for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Finn. Good evening to you and members of the board. Let me share my screen. I'll go ahead and get this going and put it on full presentation mode so we can all see. All right. Well, this is action item number 15. So the Central Valley Project was authorized in 1933 as a state water project. The Rivers and Harbors Act of 1935 reauthorized the Central Valley Project as a federal project. Purposes include irrigation and domestic water use, along with navigation and flood control. And oh, by the way, it also generates power. It's owned and operated by the U.S. Department of the Interior, the Bureau of Reclamation. It covers a large part of the state of California, from Redding to Bakersfield. This is almost 400 miles. And draws water from the Sacramento and the San Joaquin rivers. It's composed of over 20 dams and reservoirs, and it has many miles of storage and water conveyance infrastructure, and it supports agriculture, municipalities, and fish and wildlife needs. 75% of the water is used for agricultural irrigation and 25% for domestic use. In 1992, Congress enacted the Central Valley Improvement Project, or Act, CVPIA, and it amended the original act to add wildlife mitigation and other environmental enhancements to the CVP project. And we'll have more to say about this in a few slides to come. On the generation side, of interest to us is that the project has 11 hydroelectric generation facilities. It's over 2,100 megawatts of installed capacity. It produces a staggering 4,600,000 megawatt hours of annual generation historically. And the generation is first used for water pumping and delivery purposes, essentially for the irrigation needs. And this represents about 23% of the total energy produced by the project goes to those purposes. And the remaining wholesale generation is termed in Western Area Power Administration speak as base resource energy, and hence the name of our contract, the Base Resource Contract. So the Western Area Power Administration, or WAPA, is a power marketing administration under the U.S. Department of Energy. Its purpose, so WAPA has two things that they do. They market the energy to state and local governments like the district, along with all the other NCPA members. We are all base resource customers. And they also collect funds from base resource customers to meet the CVPIA requirements for those environmental mitigation measures, which I'll be discussing a little bit more of in future slides. Of note is that the base resource generation is classified as large hydroelectric. Remember that per California definition of renewable, hydroelectric energy is renewable if the generator is 30 megawatts or less. Most of the generators, the 11 generators in the CVP project, are in excess of that 30 megawatts. So most of this generation is not technically renewable, but it is emissions free, and it is considered a carbon-free resource. And of course, Senate Bill 100 or SB 100 requires 60% of our energy to be from renewable sources by the year 2030, the remaining 40% from carbon-free resources by 2045, and base resource energy being carbon-free can help the district achieve the state's clean energy requirements. And another important attribute of CDP generation is that it is shaped to load, unlike other typical hydroelectric generation happening. So the way the Bureau does this is sparing you the details, but which I'll have more to say about in a moment. And it includes environmental restoration costs per the CDPIA Act of 1992. These costs are also referred to as the Restoration Fund, which I'll have more to say about in a moment. Actually, this next slide, we'll talk about the Restoration Fund. So the idea here is that the power customers, there's both water customers and power customers. The power customer share of that Restoration Fund contribution should match essentially the share of what capital costs are expended in a proportional amount. So the proportional amount for power customers is about 30%. So water customers pay 70% for these costs, and power customers should pay 30%. And this is after all, the CVP is essentially a project to give water for irrigation and for drinking water purposes. So what has happened, though, is that the Bureau has assessed power customers the following Restoration Fund proportional shares over the years. It was 75% for 3 fiscal years. It was 40% last year. And on average, over the last 10 years, it's been about 50%. Well, you may ask why? Why would the Bureau do this? Well, the short answer is because water customers, sorry to say, they did not pay their bills. And so the Bureau felt that they could charge the power customers what they were not getting from water customers. So essentially this has been happening over the last several years. So back in 2014, NCPA and the cities of Redding, Roseville, and Santa Clara filed a lawsuit in U.S. federal court seeking recovery of these excessive Restoration Fund contributions. A quick synopsis of what's happened over the last 7 years. Well, the judge initially, when the case first went to trial, the judge dismissed the case after 2 weeks. NCPA filed an appeal. At this point, they changed their attorneys. They hired the law firm of Spiegel and McDermott in Washington, D.C. to present the appeal. By the way, Spiegel and McDermott are the district's FERC attorneys and have been the FERC attorneys for the district for, I believe, at least the last 30 years. The lawyers for Spiegel and McDermott presented the appeal, and the U.S. Court of Appeals reversed the lower court's decision in November of 2019. And by the way, I should mention that the lawyer who argued the case for Spiegel and McDermott was a gentleman named Mr. Jeff Schwartz. And you may recognize that name because Mr. Schwartz is the attorney assigned to the district for Spiegel and McDermott. Going on in the timeline, the Court of Appeals determined that proportionality, in other words, power customers only being responsible for 30%, is in fact a limitation for the Bureau, and it reinstated NCPA's legal claim. The U.S. government tried to appeal. They were denied. The appellate court remanded the case back to U.S. federal court for damages last year in April. The settlement amount has not been determined yet. However, the takeaway here in this discussion is that the Bureau can no longer overcharge power customers. They have to stick to that 30%. And the takeaway here is this is a big win for all base resource customers, including the district. And so these legal decisions and protections offer some stability for us for those future base resource rates. So predicting the rate for the 2025 base resource energy is challenging. This is challenging because of CP, the Central Valley project costs and energy production are highly variable. However, NCPA analyzed the historic base resource cost for the last 15 years from the year 2006 to the year 2020. They found that the lowest cost was $11 per megawatt hour in 2006. And the highest cost was about $60 per megawatt hour back in 2015, the year that was the driest on record. So over 15 years, they found that the average was $30 per megawatt hour. And this compares to a market price. The average market price over that same period was $40 a megawatt hour. The market price being if someone wanted to just buy energy off the market, they would have paid on average 40. So the way that any base resource customer gets this energy is that it's distributed to over the WAPA transmission lines. Some customers have a direct connection to Western. The district, of course, does not. So in order for us to receive this energy, it needs to be wheeled over Pacific Gas and Electric transmission system to NV Energy system. This means for use by the district, this means that we would have to pay two transmission system costs. So we would be subject to PG&E costs, which are part of the California Independent System Operator or CAISO transmission costs. Those costs are currently at $26.70 a megawatt hour. This compares to our NV Energy transmission costs that we pay for our energy that we get from UAMPS. NV Energy transmission costs are a little over $3 a megawatt hour. So the total cost for us to receive this energy would be just a little under $30 a megawatt hour. So the total cost for us to receive this would be the sum of the energy cost and the transmission cost. Energy cost is, if we say it's $30 an average, and transmission costs are right around 30, we're looking at a total anticipated cost of around $60 per megawatt hour for this energy. So the value of this resource to the district, I believe, one way we can look at this is we can compare what our average purchase power portfolio cost is, and this has ranged over the last several years from $65 to $75 per megawatt hour. As base resource energy, we calculate it to be around $60 per megawatt hour on average. This is somewhat lower than our purchase power portfolio cost. And so we believe that base resource energy can help keep our electric rates stable in the future at this pricing, and that additional value will be realized to the district because this is a carbon-free resource, and we believe that the demand for carbon-free resources will only increase over time. And the Bureau continues to improve the operating efficiency of the Central Valley project. So despite some cost and resource uncertainties, several other factors help to mitigate this risk. As previously mentioned, the CVPIA restoration fund costs should be less because of the legal rulings that happened, that the U.S. Appellate Court affirmation that proportionality is a limitation. Again, the Bureau cannot overcharge us anymore, and many customers will be getting a refund for overcharging that has happened in the past. In addition, base resource generation also includes some favorable operating practices shaping generation to load. It's a valuable carbon-free attributes for our clean energy procurement. And there are, even after we have the ability to terminate the contract for any reason for the next 3 years, but even once the contract starts, we have termination provisions within the contract that allow us to terminate it at least every 5 years. And we always have the option, like what we did with Plumas 7 years ago, was to assign our base resource percentage to another willing entity. So for all these reasons, staff recommends to enter into the 2025 base resource contract with Western. By entering into this contract, this allows the district to preserve all our options, including maintaining or reducing our base resource percentage, or terminating the contract for any reason up until July 1st of 2024. So again, by way of summary on the fiscal end, analysis done by NCPA yielded an average cost of about $30 per megawatt hour for this resource, compared to the market price for the same period of around 40. The total energy cost we estimate to be around $60 per megawatt hour on average. Again, evenly split almost between $30 for the energy and $30 for the transmission. And this compares to our average purchase power portfolio cost that has ranged from $65 to $75 per megawatt hour. And since it costs on average less, we believe that this would be a good energy addition to our portfolio. Again, it's carbon free, which is an important attribute. So staff recommends that the board adopt resolution 2021-03, authorizing the board president to execute contract 20 SNR 02339 for electric service base resource with the United States Department of Energy, Western Area Power Administration, Sierra Nevada region. Thank you for your time. I know it was a long presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was a lot of information and a lot of complexity. Our California Water and Electric is a Byzantine construct for sure. I have to backtrack a moment. I don't believe I asked for public comment before that presentation. So I'm going to ask for public comment now, if there was any public comment on item number 15.
No, Madam President.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will open it up to director discussion. Would anybody like to begin? I can't see everybody. Sorry.
Joe, I was wondering, on carbon free from WAPA, what's the percentage that would be to us? Do you know?
Director Aguirre, all the generation that we would get as part of this contract would be carbon free.
Okay. Now, what's the percentage rate we get from them? You know, like we're what, at 60%, 66% or something?
Oh, this would amount. We estimate that if we received this energy, that it would amount to around 6% of what we would need.
6%.
6%.
Yeah, I kind of figured it would be about 3%, but that's why I asked the question. And it's 6%.
Yes, it's a small share, but
yeah, but that's another 6% for us.
It's another 6% carbon free.
Sure. Thank you, Joe.
Joe, this is Tony. So remind me where the determination came from that 30 megawatts is the limit for renewable?
As I understand it, Director Laliotis, that is codified in California law. It's strictly a political determination. There's no. It's a political determination.
There's no technical or scientific basis.
Not that I'm aware.
I mean, from want to just pipe up real quick on that subject. At Capitol Days last week, it was brought up that there's chatter about changing that and perhaps putting hydro into the RPS portfolio. So that would be a positive thing for us, just a reclassification of that power.
Yeah, excellent. And then where do the contracts for transmission with PG&E and NV Energy stand? Are they part of this contract, or are they separate contracts? And if they are, what are those timelines and timeframes for renewal?
Our existing tariff with NV Energy, the operating agreement for our transmission service, goes through, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I want to say it's through the end of 2024. So that will have to be renegotiated, brought back to the board in the next few years. We don't have a contract we don't need a contract with PG&E. Excuse me, because they are interconnected with NV Energy. Excuse me. So if we receive energy from another balancing area, we would receive a bill through NV Energy for the transmission.
I guess what I'm getting at is the stability of that cost from PG&E. Sounds like it's somewhat out of our hands.
It's completely out of our hands. It's set by the CAISO.
Okay.
We have no control over CAISO costs, and this really underscores our favorable position in the state of California, being pretty much the only entity that's connected to the Nevada system and not within a California transmission system.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
Either Director Bender or Director Harris?
I am, since I'm new to the board and new to a lot of this lingo, I really don't have, I'm just kind of taking it in and appreciating the expertise that you have in this, Joe. So thank you. I'll probably be going through this one again, and I may have questions at a later date, but thank you for presenting it.
Thank you.
President Krista, Joe, on this new contract, we'll be paying about the same we did last time. $30 megawatt and transmission or energy.
The energy costs, that's really the hard part to predict for the future. In the past, the $30 per megawatt hour is a historical average of the last 15 years.
Oh, good. So we'll be paying the same on this on the new contract.
We project it to be similar to what has happened in the past, and also with the idea that part of that cost included paying for the restoration fund, but the Bureau was overcharging power customers for their share of the environmental costs, and the U.S. federal court agreed with NCPA and others. So we expect that at least that portion we would only be charged our fair share, which will be less than what we've been charged in the past. So I can't predict the cost with any certainty, but I think there's enough favorable factors going forward to make this a compelling resource for the district.
It's better for us, yes. Thank you very much.
I'm in favor of this. It increases our carbon-free percentage, and it costs less than our base resource Tony brought up a good point on the California ISO, kind of out of control, but there are, Joe, correct means and methods to keep our hat in the ring. I would say by with the California ISO, it's a entity that is not going to just double its rates or its transmission rates without a due process. Is that a correct statement?
Better.
President Bender, I'm not sure how those rates are set, so I couldn't answer that directly. Although I do know that those costs have increased over time. The one area that they are exploring, and you'll read about it in the news, is they're looking at expanding their system. So if they were to expand or have other states join the ISO, that may have the potential to lower rates if other balancing areas were to join them. However, the probability of that happening is,
Yeah, in the future. Joe,
Well, I think Joe froze. He's not blinking.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Okay. Well, I can continue a little bit of what he was just talking about. The macro grids of the future are still in the future. We have a ways to go before those sorts of changes get to us. But I need Joe to come back because I have questions. Uh-oh. Are you back? There you are. Hi, Joe.
I'm sorry, my computer froze. I apologize for that. I think it was all on my end. I don't believe I'm still screen sharing. Is that correct?
No.
No longer
Okay.
screen share. Is that okay with everybody? I don't think I need.
Right. I recall Joe stating verbatim the motion we need to make so we can.
Well, we're not going to make a motion yet because I have questions.
Sure. We know how to make a motion without seeing it, so we're good.
And I've got it on my this thing. So would NCPA be scheduling this like in our previous contract? They did that for us, so will they be doing that again for us? Shaping the load?
Yeah, great question, Director Finn. The answer is I think we have options. I believe UAMPS can do the scheduling for us, but we can work out those details in the coming years.
Okay, excellent. As I was reading through this, every time I had a question, you answered it in the next paragraph. I was like, oh, okay. So thank you for the thoroughness of your report. And when NCPA was comparing costs, and they were talking about what this would cost versus market rate, and that was just market rate for like the blended power, like whatever comes up at peak hours.
Correct. So market energy is unspecified. So it's not carbon free.
It's not necessarily, carbon free or renewable.
Correct.
Or what. It's okay. Excellent. Tony asked my transmission cost question. Well, I think my questions are done. So I just wanted to say I also think this is a good fit for our portfolio. Obviously, Joe, you've been really taking to heart our request for you to keep an eye out for a more diverse mix. And I think this is the way it's going to happen. It's going to be like little chunks of things from here and there that all are going to play together. And I understand that this doesn't count as a renewable technically. I am hopeful that California redefines that and we get credit for renewable and carbon free. But either way, I am a fan of hydro that already exists. So I think it's an excellent fit. Because renewables, also the things that we're looking at, like why this would become more expensive or less available, and that of course ties right back to climate change. Our our climate is changing and things are becoming, when you looked at the data that they were saying, the driest year was 2015 and the wettest was 2017. And that's what we can expect going forward, right? These massive swings of overabundance and nothing. And it's, when we choose little bits of renewables from different areas and different regions and different strengths, they play together and complement each other. So I think this is a great choice for us. I think there's a lot of exit ramps, which protect us. The pricing is right. And I thank you for the work you put into this and explaining it in great depth for us. I do appreciate it. So if we have, is there one more time, if anybody has any questions or comments to add, now is your moment. And if not, I am looking for a motion.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Director.
Motion.
Thank you, Director Aguera. Shauna, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Director Aguera,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And you know what? I am going to request that we take just a 5-minute break before we move on to the next big chunk, because water is another dense conversation. Is that okay with everybody? Okay, so let's take 5 minutes and come back at 7:55. We'll see you on the other side. Okay. Trickle back. Giving Director Aguera coming back online.
I can't seem I get enough light. I got these.
There you are.
There you go.
Hey, very good. I believe we're all back now. So thank you all. And we're rolling into our workshops this evening. So item number 16 is the discussion of the 2021 Urban Water Master Plan update. Mr. Kaufman, I believe you get the floor.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, President Finn and board members. Can you hear me, please?
Well, I thought you did this one. Oh, that's right.
So good evening. This is workshop item number 16, which is a discussion of the 2021 Urban Water Management Plan update. Just to clarify, it is technically the Urban Water Management Plan and not an Urban Water Master Plan. So the Urban Water Management Planning Act requires that all urban water suppliers prepare an urban water management plan and update it every 5 years. An urban water supplier means a supplier either publicly or privately owned, providing water for municipal purposes directly or indirectly to more than 3,000 customers or supplying more than 3,000 acre feet of water annually. And the district currently has about 13,300 water system customers. So we are indeed an urban water supplier. The purpose of the Urban Water Management Plan is to enable water suppliers to long-term resource planning and to ensure that adequate water supplies are available to meet existing and future needs. And this does require coordination and communication with our local land use planning agencies. Our current Urban Water Management Plan was adopted in June of 2016, and we are required to adopt and submit the updated Urban Water Management Plan no later than July 1st of this year. Preparation of an Urban Water Management Plan is exempt from the CEQA process, but a public hearing is required. So here we have the basic outline of the Urban Water Management Plan. Section 1 is an introduction. Section 2 goes into a description of our service area and population. Section 3 is a discussion of existing water system facilities. It'll basically include some tables and maps. Section 4, we go into historic water system and usage and some projections of future use. Section 5 discusses Senate Bill X7X7. And for those that may recall, that was the 20% reduction by 2020 that was passed back in 2009. And there are some requirements within the management plan that we have to discuss, how we calculated our baseline usage and have we met that baseline usage, and yes, we have. Section 6 goes into discussion of water system supplies, our current supplies, and our future supplies needed. Section 7 is a water shortage contingency plan. Our current plan was adopted back in 2014, but there will be some changes that are forthcoming. And Section 8 is a discussion of water demand management measures. You could also think of them as water conservation measures. And in addition, there are some mandatory topics of discussion. So within the report, you will see some things that don't quite make sense, such as discussions of desalinization, discussions of recycled water. Those things are not really applicable locally, but the state requires that we do touch on them. New requirements for the 2021 update will include inclusion of historic data for the last 5 years, inclusion of updated build-out water demand projections, some additional requirements regarding water reliability assessment and drought risk, a discussion of seismic risk, a discussion of energy intensity, as I mentioned, additional requirements for the water shortage contingency plan, and trying to bring the urban water management plan into consistency with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. So here before you is the anticipated schedule for the next few months. We have this introductory workshop this evening. We are anticipating May 5th as a public hearing on the water shortage contingency plan and adoption of the water shortage contingency plan. And the state has requested that the adoption of the water shortage contingency plan be undertaken as a separate item. And in that way, if for some reason we have to modify the water shortage contingency plan sometime within the next few years, we do not have to go back through and reopen the entire urban water management plan.
Excuse me.
On May 19th, we're envisioning a presentation of the draft urban water management plan. We would then hold the public hearing in the middle of June with adoption on that same evening. And then we would submit the last week of June to the Department of Water Resources. So at this point, I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of a discussion of our historic and projected water production and water demands going forward. So the district's historic peak water production occurred back in 2007 with a maximum day demand of 14.84 million gallons. An average day demand in 2007 was 6.67 million gallons per day. Now, for comparison, calendar 2020, we're down almost half of that level on the maximum day at 7.18 million gallons. And the average day demand for all of 2020 was just over 4 million gallons. Now, this overall reduction since 2007, a couple of things come into play, one of which was the construction of the fiberboard well, which serves non-potable water to 2 golf courses. So that removed 1.3 million gallons a day from the potable water system. As everyone is aware, we have implemented metering on all of our customers and volume-based billing. That has definitely created some incentives to use less water. And we've also undertaken pipeline replacement programs and our water loss reduction programs, and those have had an impact as well. So on this graph here, you can see our historical water production demand since 1980 for the past 40 years shown here on this table. You can certainly see a downward trend on the maximum day demand, which is the uppermost line here, for about the last 10 years. And the one anomaly that you can see is this year here, 2013. And the thing that happened in 2013 was that the fiberboard well was down for a period in the midsummer. And so we actually ended up serving those 2 golf courses from the potable system. And that's what led to that spike there in 2013. If we throw out that usage from the 2 golf courses, the potable water system would have seen a use that was pretty consistent with the downward trend in this area. The other thing to look at would be the average day usage for 2020 right here. You can see a significant jump in 2020 versus the past few years. We believe that's related to a couple of factors, one of which was September and October of this year, at least anecdotally, were a little warmer and a little drier than prior years. So we believe there was additional irrigation demand in that time period that we wouldn't see the few prior years. And then again, anecdotally, it appears that there are more people in town, that a number of folks that own second homes have relocated up here for some time. We don't have enough information to really tell if that's going to be a permanent impact on the district or if things are going to revert back to, we'll call it pre-COVID-19 conditions once vaccines become more available and the world, quote, goes back to normal. So here we have a breakdown of the 2020 potable water usage. You can see that about half of our water goes to our single family residences. The other thing to notice here is about a quarter of the water goes to what we're classifying as non-revenue water. And this is basically the difference between the total production into the system from our groundwater wells and the total usage going to our customers as measured by the meters. So this includes mainly leaks. The system does leak. I think we're all aware of that. We've discussed that and the need to continue with our leak detection and pipeline replacement projects. This would also include unmeasured usage, things such as firefighting, water withdrawn from fire hydrants. Construction water is pretty much covered for the most part by our construction water fill station at the south side property, but there are some other unauthorized uses that do occur. So now in terms of build out water demand projections, our current estimate of water demand at build out is a little over 16 million gallons a day on the maximum day, with an average of about 7.5 million gallons per day. And these numbers are slightly above that historic peak that we had back in 2007. The assumptions that we used in developing these projections is the maximum allowable density per zoning of all vacant parcels, no redevelopment of existing development parcels, no change in the non-revenue water amounts. So we're still going to be losing about 25 to 27% of our production into the non-revenue water, and existing occupancy levels for single family residences. Now, hopefully, as we move forward into the future, we will be able to drive that non-revenue water percentage down. That would accordingly lower these build out demand projections. The other thing to be aware of is that our existing firm water production capacity is 10.6 million gallons. And by firm production capacity, we mean our available well supply capacity with one of our wells out of commission for whatever reason, due to maintenance failure, due to periodic maintenance, due to some purpose, we've lost one of our wells. And so with this, you can see that we will need to construct additional wells in the future. So the other thing we would like to show you here is a comparison of our prior build-out water demand projections versus current. So if we go back to our 2004 water master plan, we had a build-out demand projection of 25.5 million gallons per day. And then you can see that that build-out projection has been dropping over the years. And again, now we're down at the 16.16 that I indicated earlier. And again, just for reference, actual production in 2020, maximum day was 7.18 million gallons. So there is no direct fiscal impact associated with this workshop. And I'm available for any questions that the board may have.
Neil, which well did we lose?
I'm sorry, we haven't lost any wells. Everything is still functioning. It's just when we talk about the firm production capacity, it's a safety factor or an assumption that we have a well out of service. And so we would like that redundancy to be able to ensure that we can provide water to the customers.
Yeah. So it's just it's a built-in equation of some sort, the way we study the system. We haven't
Correct.
lost wells. Oh, good. Thank you. So, sounds good.
I've got a question. Neil, I know that there's a SCADA system out there. Is that where you're gaining most of your information from?
We have a number of different sources that we utilize for information. You know, we do have our SCADA system. We have meters on all of our wells. Some of those meters are tied into the SCADA system. The remaining meters, some are read manually. We are working on bringing all of that information into the SCADA system. In terms of customer usage, we do have our meter reading system, which is separate and independent from the SCADA system. So that's where we're going to in terms of customer usage. And then we've also been undertaking a few projects to install meters at intermediate locations within the system, such as pump stations, pressure reducing stations, and flow control stations. Some of that information comes back through the meter reading system. Some of it comes back through the SCADA system. And so we're using that to try and mass balance smaller areas of the system in an effort to identify the leaks and the lost water.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Great presentation. The urban water management plan is largely a regulatory box check, but it does give us the opportunity to see some valuable data for ourselves. And what I do want to point out is, all of the good news that Neil presented with regards to our continual success in reducing our water usage and consumption is a direct reflection on the investment in our infrastructure over the last 10, 20 years. And so once again, just a thank you to staff and to this board and to the community for working together to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And it includes rates. It includes, making tough decisions, and it includes our technical staff bringing forward projects that will give us the biggest bang for our buck. And I think we've been successful in that regard. So thanks for all that good information, and we'll continue to move forward.
Awesome.
I don't have any questions. Thanks for the report, Neil. It's all looking good. Tony pointed out some great aspects of the accomplishments that staff and the district has been doing. So I really appreciate that, and we'll keep working hard to keep improving, continuous improvement, and investing in infrastructure and reducing the water draw and getting more bang for the buck. So thanks again, and we'll see this back soon on the calendar. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Excellent presentation and thorough. I do have still a few questions. One is who grades us on the water shortage contingency plan? Are we given a series of benchmarks that we need to reach, or things that how does that look? What does that look like?
All right, so within the urban water management plan itself, the document is submitted to the Department of Water Resources, and there is a group within there that reviews the plan and verifies that we have included all of the regulatory requirements that need to be discussed within the plan. Now, separate from that, there are a number of, I'll call them initiatives, for lack of a better term, that we anticipate the state is going to be mandating in terms of water usage. There's been some discussion, which you may be aware of, regarding a requirement for 55 gallons per person per day indoor usage, which is out there. We do further anticipate that the state will impose some requirements regarding non-revenue water and, mandate that we reduce that in some manner. And Brian could probably speak to if there's any other forthcoming mandates that are going to impact us immediately within the next few years. Those things are not necessarily part of the urban water management plan itself, but they will definitely be impacting the operations on the water side and things that we will have to invest in.
Okay, so there already exists like a regulatory framework that the contingency plan has to address, or
It's one of the things, President Finn, that staff, Neil Kaufman as our system engineer and Steve Poncelet as our strategic affairs director, have been working with our JPA organization, CMUA. There is definitely some conflict or overlap in some of the regulatory burden that's coming out there. The water loss reduction performance requirement is coming. It's unavoidable. The state is, I believe, about 2 years behind in getting that regulation out, but we're continually working and keeping an eye on that. Steve has been working pretty diligently on keeping us updated on kind of the progress. In terms of the water shortage contingency plan, the urban water management plan has a component that requires it. But if you also recall, back in 2015, there was the state emergency drought order. And out of that, there was a new provision within the water shortage contingency plan that has specific requirements in it. And so it's not a grading scale. It just needs to check each of the boxes of that shortage contingency. So things, for example, if your water availability is reduced by a certain percent, what will your organization do in reaction to that? And so that's where that's in place.
okay, I guess that's what I wanted to understand. I want to understand what that means. What does the contingency that means? What are we going to do as our water supplies dwindle if they do so? Okay, thank you. And our future projections, what is the time frame for, what are we thinking is the time frame for build out where we would be hitting, needing new wells? And is that included in our 10-year capital plan?
So the town of Truckee recently did a new population projection. There was a population projection that was done back in 2006 in part of preparation of the existing general plan. And that at that time, they had projected 2% population growth going forward, with build out hitting somewhere around 2043, 2044. The most recent projections that were just done, and they're in conjunction with the general plan update, which is now ongoing and will probably be done. The feedback I get from the planning department is probably sometime in 2022, the new general plan will be out. So that current projection that they're working with is going forward with about a 0.6% population growth going forward. Now, again, we did see a significant jump in water usage in 2020. We don't know, is that permanent? Is that kind of a blip in the grand scheme of things? We probably won't know that for a couple of years. If we go forward with that 0.6% population projection, build out is towards the end of the century. But by the same token, we do expect water production and water usage to increase faster than population. So we're probably looking at about a 1.5% to 2% projection on the water side that we'll be using going forward for planning purposes. And so that would put the next well probably out in that end of the 10-year time frame. And you will see more of that. That will be discussed in the urban water management plan in that chapter 6 section.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the work you guys do for us all the time. So thank you. I think I'm good. Does anybody have anything else they want to add or subtract?
No, I appreciate all your hard work, Neil.
Okay, great. Thank you. And now we are rounding the bend here. Number 17, our second workshop of the night. I believe Stephen Poncelet is going to give us a review of the GEI Consultants Martis Valley Groundwater Basin Annual Report. Complementary water discussion.
President Finn and members of the board, this is our second water workshop. And, you know, this is a major portion of what feeds into the work that Neil just discussed. The Urban Water Management Plan talks about supply and demand, and this is kind of on the supply and the science side of things. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And can you guys see that and hear me well?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So this is workshop item 17. So the district has a long history of stewardship and collaboration managing water resources. There's decades of monitoring and scientific study. And this includes within the last decade, the federal Truckee River Basin Study and the associated Desert Research Martis Valley Groundwater Model. It's a short way of saying there's a lot of science in our basin. And in 2013, the local groundwater agencies, which we call the local water agencies, which is the district, the North Star Community Services District, and Placer County Water Agency, did adopt a collaborative groundwater management plan. So fairly soon after adoption of the groundwater management plan, which I will refer to as the GMP, the state of California passed the 2014 Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, known as SGMA, and it applied to all medium and higher priority basins, and that'll become important later. And at the time, the Martis Valley was medium priority, and so it suspended implementation of the GMP because essentially you had a new regulatory framework. The local water agencies, plus the town of Truckee, Nevada County, and Placer County, which I'll refer to as the local SGMA agencies, because that legislation required that both the water agencies and the entitlement agencies participate, collaborated on compliance. They hired GEI consultants who certified that the Martis Valley Groundwater Basin had operated within its sustainable yield for at least a period of 25 years. And they put forth an alternative submittal in December 2016, which was one of the ways to comply with the act. The submittal was the state had 2 years to review the submittal, and in that period they hadn't done it yet. So we did do a first year annual report, which is the ongoing science and monitoring in the basin, and that was for the 2017 water year. And at the end of 2018, a full 2 years after submittal, the state review was ongoing. So while they were doing that, state law required that basin prioritization be reviewed every 5 years. And like I said earlier, the Martis Valley was medium priority at that time. And when they came out with the initial results of prioritization, we were again medium. But the local SGMA agencies reviewed the results and found and documented a series of flaws and errors. And we met with state staff and we gave them data and they agreed with what we had done. And at the end of that interaction, we were reprioritized to very low. And under that reprioritization, we were no longer required to comply with SGMA. So the Martis Valley local SGMA agencies did withdraw the alternative submittal that had yet to be reviewed. And we agreed that the collaborative framework for groundwater management that we had established in 2013 was an appropriate way to proceed. So the local water agencies, again, the district, North Star, and PCWA, and I'd be remiss in not stopping right here and acknowledging that while I've kind of led this effort to put together the GMP and the SGMA effort and work with the local agencies, what I'm going to present now comes from the data and the work of the 3 water agencies. And that's representing the professionals who operate those water districts. And that includes our current interim general manager and water utility director, Brian Wright, the North Star Community Services District General Manager, Mike Stoudemire, and then PCWA's Tony Ferenzi, who represents them in our effort here. So that effort and the water agencies rekindled the GMP, and a key component of that had been a stakeholder working group that we had gone through a 2-year process in the development of the GMP. And so we reconvened that stakeholder working group, and that include local public agencies, major water users and pumpers, and interests such as environmental interests and other special interests. And in October of 2019, we did have a kickoff meeting with that group. We reviewed the original GMP. We updated the group on what we had done since the SGMA and the significant science that went into the alternative submittal and then the first year annual report, and then discussed key GMP meetings ongoing. And then we kind of reset the start of the GMP to 2019. Because essentially we had, that was the start, because the GMP has objectives and commitments. Like every year we do an annual report by a third-party expert, and every 5 years we'll update it. And so we needed to reset the time frame. And then the next step was to prepare that first annual report. And this is the monitoring we do anyway. And we submit to the state regularly through the CASGEM program. But every year we hire an outside third-party independent expert to review that and essentially assess the state of the basin. So we solicit a proposal from GEI consultants to do the Martis Valley GMP annual report. They are, of course, very familiar with us because they had done the SGMA work. And we needed to do 2 water years, 18 and 19, because of the delay in the transition to SGMA and then the transition back to the GMP. The costs of the report are split equally amongst the 3 water agencies, District, PCWA, North Star CSD. And the district board, as the lead agency, groundwater agency in the basin, awarded a contract to GI Consultants in December of 2019. So GI Consultants has completed the Martis Valley Groundwater Basin Annual Report, water years 2018 and 19. It's built upon the decades of scientific work and monitoring. It incorporates the local water agency shift from quarterly monitoring to monthly monitoring. And this is an important piece because seasonality of water use and seasonality of impacts is becoming increasingly important. And before the state shifted to a monthly monitoring regime, the district and our local water agencies had already decided to do that. So I believe it's almost 3 years we've already been doing that, and that increases the granularity of our data and allows us to really, look at summer versus winter and seasonality. The report documents the management and monitoring activities of the local water agencies, and it essentially summarizes that the Martis Valley Groundwater Basin continue to operate well within sustainable yield. So overall, 7,000, 8,000 acre feet a year is what all of the agencies are taking from the Martis Valley. And the sustainable yield estimates are, average around 22,000. So you're about a third of that. And historic estimates over the last 50 years showed that ranged from 10 to 50,000 acre feet. So, we're still even below the driest years in terms of sustainable yield. Doesn't mean water conservation and, really being conscious of water use isn't incredibly important, but it does point to the fact that we're well within sustainable yield, and the report documents that we continue to be an overall healthy basin. So the next steps, share the GEI annual report with the Martis Valley Groundwater Management Plan Stakeholder Working Group, should the board agree to accept the report tonight, and then make available the report to the public on the local water agencies' websites, and then convene the stakeholder working group to go over this report. And that's a commitment we've made to our stakeholders is we'll do the annual report. And every year we'll present it to you, and we will include the technical expert GEI who wrote the report. So they get to, directly question the expert should they have any questions, concerns, or issues they'd like to explore. And we're targeting early March for that. And that is open to the boards of the 3 local water agencies, the stakeholder working group. So for those who really want to dive into the incredible detail of this report and all the hydrogeology that goes into it, that is an opportunity to do that. And then ongoing is the stewardship and management of the basin and the precious resource. So we will, pretty quickly start working on the next year's annual water report, because again, we do them every year. And then the commitment is to update the GMP every 5 years, and that would be 2024. So the GEI Consultants contract was for $21,000 plus a change order contingency. The final contract price was $21,000. That will be shared equally amongst the 3 agencies. So $7,000 for the district share, and sufficient funds do exist in the water operations fiscal year 20 budget. And the recommendation is to accept the GEI Consultants Martis Valley Groundwater Basin annual report, water years 2018 and 2019. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And with that, we will open it up to director discussion. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen this evening? All right. There's a big stampede of water questions I see. Tony.
No, I just want to thank Stephen's efforts on this process, reminding us of our success with the alternate submittal not too long ago, and the results of this just support why we pursued that so vigorously, and that we have such a great working group to show our stewardship of this aquifer. So, and then also just a quick recognition for PCWA as they kind of no longer have a dog in the fight, but have continued to help us along and show their leadership as a regional water agency, with their continued partnership in this process. So,
Thank you for your comments. Let's see, do we have any other questions or comments from board members?
I always like to see it when the community gets together with the different agencies to come together and produce something like this. So Stephen, thank you very much for your efforts, and you did a great job tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Harris.
Say,
Mr.
Steve, who's that? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Director Aguera, please.
Okay, Steve, a couple of years ago when we had that emergency, we couldn't water our lawns until Tuesday and all that. I can't remember what they call that, but anyway, I had heard that we had like 65-year from our last study that our water for would last 65 more years. And we were in drier states then, but then we had the water in our water for. What is it now? Is it the same, or was it then 65 years of water in the future?
Sure, Director Harris. I can tell you that the reports are very detailed on what we call mass balance, which is the amount of water that comes in and out of the system in a given year, and on what the water storage of the basin is, which is essentially the size of the bowl that holds the water below the Martis Valley.
Yeah,
and there are estimates and ranges of the size of the storage, and they are very large, and they are counted in tens of years and many tens of years. To put an actual, number on it, I think is a little direct. What it shows is that in our part of this water system, which runs from Lake Tahoe to Pyramid Lake, we're pretty well off because, the storage is, the lower estimates are 500,000 acre feet, and the higher estimates are well over that. And we're using 7,000 a year. So you could do that math. But it also, we're also part of a greater system that includes the surface water flows and what flows down to our neighbors in Nevada. And so while we may have ample water supply, it doesn't mean the entire system does, which is why we always caution that while sitting at the top of the aquifer is a good place to be, we still need to be very conscious of water use.
Yeah, but I know we don't have any access to surface water, but that our aquifer was sustainable for that long a time. And I know it's been a couple of years, and we've had a couple of drought years in there. And I just wondered if we still have, or from that study, kind of an estimate of how many years do we have left in our aquifer.
The study shows that we still remain stable from your projections of a couple of years ago. Nothing's really changed.
Oh, good. Okay. So that was true then. That's how we say. Maybe I was going to ask Neil the question, and my computer my sound went off. So anyway, thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Thank you, Director Aguera. Director Bender, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. A lot of work. Nice to see the science in there and give us the backbone for the other plans that we base on this, and develop continue the relationships with our other water agencies. So, and nice to know that we still have a lot of water down there and we do need to take care of it. So thank you for all the hard work and really appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Bender. And I'm going to echo all of those things. I really appreciate all the data that you included with this report. I think, more data, make better decisions, the more you know. And I really do appreciate seeing it all. It's a lot of work. And I also echo Director Harris about the collaborative effort of our local water agencies to let's stay very low priority and stay out of stigma. And I don't think anybody can care for our aquifer as much as we do, as the people who live here and the people who have made their life's work water. And we're more than qualified to take care of it well. And I think this reflects that. So thank you for all your work in this, Stephen, and thank you for such a granular, as you said, presentation for us. I do appreciate that. And I think that I don't think we have to make a motion. We just received it. So we received that information. We appreciate the gift. And we say thank you for it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Okay, my goodness. Now we're moving on to routine business, the approval of the January 6th, 2021 and January 2021 minutes. Do we have any public comment on the minutes?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Opening it up to the board, do we have a motion or comments?
I've got a comment. I was actually a little disheartened to see that we had the meeting minutes are a great opportunity for us to communicate with the community. And I was a little disheartened that they were very thin on director comments, on bullet points of what is talked about. And I was actually sad to see that. I was excited. When I first joined, it was a much more, there was a lot more information. So if somebody had missed the meeting, they still feel like they got a taste of being there. But now it's just like the agenda with who voted what. And I just thought it was kind of thin. I was hoping that the board would like to see this more as an opportunity for communication with the community.
Thank you. I think I'm just going to sort of lay out what the process was and sort of what we concluded here was that transcribing the minutes sort of leads to ambiguity. And now that we are on the path of recording it and having them available to view, I think that's as accurate as you can get. So we went for the more streamlined minutes, and the public has access to viewing these meetings on the website. And that way people can say, because it happens all the time. I notice this in my own communications with people that you would think I'd be very practiced with, like my husband, where he says something and I hear what he says and we have completely different interpretations of that. And I think that is magnified when you're doing things like transcribing minutes and one director says, that's not what I said. And it has the chance to just become a little bit onerous. And so while we're making this transition, we just decided for the moment, we will abide by what our code actually says. And it is the votes, the action that has been taken. And that's what we settled on for the transcription of the minutes for the time being. But again, these now are recorded and will be accessible on our website. So I think that's a pretty that way viewers can make their own interpretations and judgments of what they actually see and hear. Any other?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 6th, 2021 and January 20th, 2021.
I'll second that motion. Donna, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Director Agora,
Yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
No.
Vice President Laliotis,
Yes.
and President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, which brings us to our closed session. So we will be retreating to closed session and putting this one on hold. So for some reason, the form is escaping me at the moment, but gross. Is that all I have to do?
Well, we should refer specifically to the agenda, so we could say that we are going to close session under items 19 and 20 as listed on the agenda.
Very good. So we will be going into closed session in regards to items 19 and 20 on the agenda. And we will meet everybody on the other side.
Where was the minutes? I think we kind of got out of